Don't you worry, the clip's about to begin, but don't forget to subscribe. Or else. Don't make me turn this website around.
All right, well, we're going to go to the next caller. So the next caller that we have on the line is going to be Joseph. So Joseph is calling from Utah. Hi, Joseph. How are you doing today? Welcome to the line.
Hello, Shannon and Katie. Thank you so much for taking my call. It's an honor to speak with two lovely ladies tonight. And I'm very grateful for your content and your platforms. I think you do a lot of really great feminist, atheist content.
Oh, well, thank you. All right. Well, that's good, Joseph. We're done. That's enough. Good call. Thanks.
Have a great night.
What would you like to talk about today, Joseph?
Oh, I'll take my check in the mail. No, just kidding.
That's right.
So, I feel like I can acknowledge that my personal religion, the one that I was raised in, my grandparents and parents are a part of this religion, and it is a cult, but it's like, like my church is a mother of cults. Utah is it's like a theme park of cults. There's so many of us, and we even have a cult con in the summer, just like Comic-Con, and it's called Sunstone, and so all the cult leaders get to gather and do cult stuff, but it's like even I, as a mentally ill, celibate gay man, I'm an aspiring cult leader, it's something that my parents will actually give their blessing on, but I have to actually live up to a certain standard, something that in our community, it's like you have to keep certain commandments, you have to be very devoted to our theology, our religion, our authority, stuff like that. And, I have a lot of personal limitations.
When you say, you're an aspiring cult leader, is that, you kind of joking around with the word? Obviously, maybe you acknowledge you're in a cult, but I presume that not everyone at this cult con or whatever you're calling it, your parents and stuff, do they consider it as a cult as well? Is that how you view it?
Well, because it's you can be someone within our culture who hears voices and they will say that is good, that is a sign that the Spirit is with you. If you pursue that, as I have, allowed myself to believe that, what my brain, what my mind, what my heart, what my spirit is telling me is coming directly from these. I mean, we worship a God and a goddess, a mother and father in heaven, and Jesus, and so we're very willing to believe in things that are not accessible to other religions, but that's what makes us so fertile as a church that produces other break-off communities.
If you just say that there's different ways you could look at sort of the voices that you hear and your aspirations to become a leader in a religious leader. So you could say perhaps they are the gods talking to you, and perhaps we could argue that in a bit, but that doesn't necessarily mean it is or isn't a cult, because I guess when we say cult, we often think of there's some kind of manipulation behind it, or some kind of personality leader who sort of controls things, and it's often got some sort of malicious intent to it, or something like that.
Control, thought control, undue influence, control, so behavioral control.
Are you using cult in that sense, or are you using cult in sort of just a small group, a small religious group kind of sense? And I'm just trying to understand what you mean by cult.
Thank you for that question, because I'm sure that both of you, by detractors, have been accused of trying to be something equivalent to what would be an unhealthy cult leader kind of power dynamic with your listeners. I mean, I can just imagine that that's what people think, that people go on YouTube in order to like influence other people's children. And I know that that's not, what you guys are doing. I know that YouTube provides a unique platform for people to be themselves, and they're not necessarily asking for the same kind of things that, Jim Jones or, L. Ron Hubbard were demanding of people. What I think you want is for people to hear your story and your perspective. When I come with all of my crazy cult beliefs, it's like I want that too. Maybe I want the validation of my own community, but I'm willing to seek other believers out in the ether. And, I feel very motivated by what you have both done. Like I'm sure that people have criticized you for your platforms. And,
Never.
If it isn't too...
What I'm interested in is, like, you keep describing yourself as like having crazy cult beliefs, and obviously, like, some people who are like cult leaders or in cults don't see the difference between what they're doing and what someone who's not in a cult is doing, and maybe they would think that I'm like a cult leader and they aren't or something, but it seems almost like you view that the other way around. And I'm just wondering, like, do you feel like, I don't know, it just seems very much like I'm a crazy cult person. Like, is that actually like how you view yourself? If you think your views are crazy, why do you hold them? I guess is what I'm getting to. Or is that just like are you suggesting that maybe what we do is we could say, oh, it's a crazy cult thing, and so it's the kind of same as your thing, and we're all just like different players in this crazy cult game? Like, is that how you're trying to suggest it?
That actually, yeah, that sounds, very much like, because, to make supernatural claims, please.
Oh, I was just going to say, I guess if someone was going to say, like, oh, I'm in a cult and you're in a cult and Shannon's in a cult, we're all just our own cult leaders. I guess my point that I would make as like a difference is there's a difference between like having some kind of influencer status, whatever you want to call it, where people are listening to what you're saying and hearing your beliefs and stuff, and like actively trying to convert people, I guess is perhaps one difference. So maybe you could still argue that I was trying to convert people into believing what I believe. I don't know.
There's more
I
to
feel
a
like
cult than that, too, I think. Like, in order for it to be a cult, it's not just about influencing people to attempt to adopt or understand or see your perspective or understand your beliefs. There's also, like, behavioral control and thought control. Like, you cut people out of your lives.
If we just ignore the label cult, it's like classic meaning for the moment, and we just say what Joseph is trying to do is the same as what you're trying to do, Shannon, and same as what I'm trying to do. So what's the difference? Like, he's trying to convert people to his religion of Jesus, the God and the Goddess, and you're just trying to convert people to your belief system, and I'm just trying to convert people to my belief system. So how can we accuse him of having a damaging cult when we're doing the same thing? And so what are the differences in our positions? And I guess the big thing, perhaps all three of us would argue this, but I would say that the position I'm trying to take is the rational one, which is just based on the evidence that we have. And I want to say to people, I'm not trying to tell you what to believe. I'm not just giving you things. I'm not saying, here's a list of commands you should believe if you want to follow me. I'm like, mate, what you believe in right now has a logical contradiction in it. So I'm going to point that out. And if you find a logical contradiction in my beliefs, tell me, and they're going to change. Whereas perhaps someone who has a religion that they're sort of trying to change people's view to, they're going to say, well, here is just a part of our religion, and that can't change, and there's no evidence for it, and that's just what we believe here. And I don't think that anything that I stand for or believe in is that, at least not intentionally. And if someone pointed out that it was, then I would have to think about it and change my position, I guess.
Does that resonate with you, Joseph?
I mean, very much. Thank you so much. That, I really appreciate being able to have these conversations with people who are, they're in a minority perspective for sure, and that, leads, I think, to a lot of understanding and empathy. So thank you so much. I mean, I would like to post some slideshows of I get impressions from what I believe are divine spirits, and they tell me weird things. And so like I want people to look at my videos. I want them to look at what would be like sermons, and does this even make sense? Because this is my reality. It doesn't necessarily need to make sense to everybody, but I'm sure it would make sense to some people.
If I guess with your belief system, if you presented your belief system and you heard back from what people said, and if someone said to you, this assertion you're making doesn't have any evidence at all, or this assertion you're making conflicts with another assertion, would you then be in a position to change your view on that? Or is this kind of your religion is your belief system, and so it's not going to change? Because I think that's often quite a difference between these things. Some people either avoid criticism, avoid facing the sort of contradictions in the worldview, or they'll just shut down and go into defense mode. And if you're open to listening to people come up with, if you put your slideshow on and I watch it and then I say, oh, that's great, and lots of this kind of makes sense internally, but it's based on this premise, and I think that premise doesn't stand, then where are you going with that? Are you then going to say fuck you, Katy, or are you going to be like, oh crap, I need to reevaluate my entire belief system? Or somewhere in between, I guess.
Right. And so as content on my personal YouTube account, I try to be very candid about times where I've been mistaken in my spiritual prophecies. And, so when I put that information out there, I am inviting scrutiny, but at the same time, it's, hopefully something that people want to engage with because it's not threatening. I don't want to threaten anyone's identity or their beliefs, but my beliefs, because of whatever neural condition I have, it's religious, ecstatic experiences that it's I don't know how else to share that with people. It's such a personal thing that happens. So I try to make YouTube videos that explain what that feels like. And I'm sure that's similar to what you both want to achieve on YouTube.
Not necessarily, though, I don't think, Joseph. It sounds to me like you have personal experience that you've interpreted in a very specific way, and you would like to transmit the specific way that you interpreted those personal experiences, so that other people who have maybe had a similar experience could potentially also interpret that experience as you did. And that is actually kind of the antithesis of what I want to do. Because what I want to do is I want people to understand the fallibility of perceptions, because I spent a long time studying perceptions and cognition, the fallibility of perceptions and cognition. Recognize that we are all inherently prone to, and in fact will interpret things incorrectly, inadequately, and it will affect us detrimentally potentially as a result. So to be more careful in scrutinizing and understanding the way that our perceptions and cognitions operate. It sounds to me like what you're saying is, my perceptions and cognitions operate this way. Perhaps yours do too, and thus we can commiserate about how we interpret these experiences similarly. And I don't necessarily think that that's a super valuable endeavor, unless you're looking for people to commiserate with. If that's your end game, is to say, well, other people might have similar experiences than me, and I would like to be able to, get us together so that we can talk about how we experience things similarly. That can kind of start a loop where you're just utilizing each other to reinforce how you interpret experiences instead of really scrutinizing how you interpret experiences to make sure that there's a real solid ground for validity and it's based in reality. You can start to deviate from reality pretty strongly if you create that type of environment. So I don't think that is what I'm trying to do. I think I'm actually trying to do the opposite. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I guess
for sure. And please.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, I guess there's something which I think I do, which perhaps could be confused with that, which is sharing my experiences and my interpretation of my experiences. And I guess what I really want to do is like find out what's true and like communicate that to other people and show why it is true. Here is the evidence for this. Here is the evidence for this. Therefore, I've made this conclusion. But then also, I will have some experiences based on that, and it can be valuable to add your own experience, as long as that's not then evidence for like this wider conclusion. So I guess my example would be like, as a trans woman, I can say this is what I felt growing up, this is what I felt in transition, and this is why I personally feel my path is the right one for me. However, I couldn't then say, therefore, transition is good. What I would have to then do is say, well, here are the facts, and this is what we know from studying thousands of trans people, and this is what we know from all of these other things, and they add up, and this is how my experience kind of fits with that in some way. But my experiences can be valuable, but they're not like my argument for my position, I guess. So
yeah, that makes sense to me, because you can't divorce anything from experience, really. every time you're communicating anything, it's based on experience. So I 100% agree with that. But I just don't think that just communicating your experience as though it represents some form of truth, especially when you're talking about things like prophesying.
Yeah.
Gets into some dangerous territory. Is any of that valuable?
That's why, well, thank you. Yes. Because like, I fear like the possibility that 10 years from now, I could just be like a failed cult leader, but I want to also just be a source of entertainment and,
just don't make a cult.
Thank you
Joseph.
so much.
Cults are bad. No cults. Okay. Just try to.
Cults are bad.
Why don't you try to be a thought leader instead? Be somebody.
But like one a rational thought leader.
Yes.
Present your story. Exactly. Present your story and look at the facts. And that's the best.
Thank you so much. And one last thing, Jesus Christ that talks to me on a continuous basis, he's very chatty. He wants me to tell, both of you and your audience that Judy Garland reincarnated as Zooey Deschanel.
Oh, Joseph, I would very much appreciate it if you would. I recognize that this is a reality of an experience that you've just had. And I would very much appreciate it if you could potentially seek out a form of mental health counseling or therapy to ensure that this experience is one that you can validate and isn't having a detrimental effect on you, okay?
Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Joseph. Enjoy the rest of your day. All right? Have a good weekend.
You too.
Bye.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, Katie.
You're welcome, Joseph. Oh, bless him. He was kind.
Interesting. I've got cat hair floating around the room from Poppy, and it's all going on my nose.
Oh no! Mine apparently has calmed down briefly, but that's probably short-lived. I'm sure the screen will come down at any moment. At any moment.
Hey, thanks for checking out this clip for The Line. While you're here, hit that like button, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and then share this with that bitter uncle of yours who loves talking about the good old days.